Hey everyone, my name is Jake McNeal. I'm the Extension Corn and Soybean Specialist for the University of Tennessee. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about green stem syndrome in soybean. These are questions that I get every year. This year though, a little bit more than in previous years, and we're going to be talking about some of the examples of what that looks like and some of the causes associated with it. We're going to be out in the field looking at beans that are ready to harvest or R8 growth stage, along with others that are still totally green. The main factor that's going to contribute to that is those beans that are still green have either abnormal or a total lack of pod development on those plants. Now the reasons why can vary from year to year. It is most always a physiological disorder that is associated with drought, sometimes flooding that causes those plants to shed or abort pods early on. It is due to disrupting the source to sink relationship between the plant and the pods that are developing. And all of those starches, carbohydrates, and sugars have nowhere to go, and so they stay in the stems. They can't transport to the pods because they aren't there, and so effectively those plants stay healthier and alive for a lot longer. We will see this even following the application of harvest aids. Harvest aids are not the solution to this. You can't really spray this problem away. Those plants are simply too healthy and too alive for that harvest aid to effectively terminate them. So since this is predominantly, not exclusively, but predominantly a physiological disorder, what that means is a lot of times this is due to plant response to the environment that they're in a given year. And so when we talk about the environment, what I'm mainly talking about is rainfall, but also soil texture. And so areas of the field where you see this present, ask yourself, what is the soil texture here? Is it on the upper end of the field? Maybe some sandy soil textures. Maybe it's on a ridge somewhere where that soil is going to lose water faster than anywhere else around it. Case in point, 2025, we had substantial rains early in the season. However, we got dry very fast after that. And so those plants entered water stress very rapidly. The wrong combination of planting date and maturity group then entering the drought stress can cause those plants to either abort pods, but most likely never really set pods to begin with. So in this particular field that we're looking at today, this was a variety trial here at the West Tennessee Research and Education Center. And this green stem syndrome is present across all varieties in this field. And that's because it's mainly a soil texture issue in this field. These areas ran out of water much faster. And in that critical reproductive period where we need to be setting pods, the plant had no resources to give pod development. And so it's not necessarily a variety issue. It can be certain varieties can want to stay healthier, greener for just a little bit longer as opposed to some of the others, but that's not green stem syndrome. That's just a little bit of a variety difference. In this field, we are looking at true green stem syndrome, and it helps us to know by looking at it's present across varieties and across the same line or the same vein in the field. Truly, the best thing that you can do is be in the field scouting throughout the season, especially once those plants enter reproductive stage. Speaking of scouting, I want to talk about our soybean scout schools. Annually, we have 2 to 3 scout schools spaced across the state where we talk about agronomics of soybean production, weed, disease, insect management, and that's a great time of the year to be out looking at your soybeans, identifying issues that are present then that may end up turning into something that's going to rob yield later in the season.
Hi, I'm Heather Kelly, Field Crops Plant Pathologist, IPM Coordinator with University of Tennessee. And so while it's already been mentioned, really the majority of the time this is a physiological syndrome. There are a few things that are biotic that can cause it and contribute to it also. And so I want to mention those today. So one of the main culprits is bean pod mottle virus. This is a virus that's transmitted by beetles. So if you are scouting earlier in the season or you noted that you did have a good level of infestation or feeding from beetles, they may have transmitted this virus to the plants, and then that virus replicating in the plant is now causing it to stay green. With that, the only way to truly know is we would have to get samples and send them off to a lab to get them tested, and that does cost money. But again, knowing if earlier you had that infestation is a really good indicator, as well as some symptomology of the leaves that would usually stay on too, having more of a rugosity, a leaf kind of crinkling to them. But again, later in the season, it's hard to necessarily determine that. This year in particular, again, the majority of the fields that we're having the stay green effect is really usually due to, again, physiologically the plant not having pods where to put that energy. and how it is associated a lot of times with that sandier soil. What might also be adding to though some of the yield loss, where there might have been plants that even died prematurely in that area, is charcoal rot. And so charcoal rot is a fungus that lives in the soil, and it's really one of our only pathogens that love hot, dry weather. And so a lot of times you get not only that drop in yield due to the drought, but also due to the pathogen. And again, as early as July and August this year, we were seeing spots in fields having issues from the drought. But it was also during that time that we could further guarantee if we also had charcoal rot or not, to compare those plants that were still living versus those that had died in those areas, to see if there was charcoal rot there. And even at harvest, you can look for charcoal rot. You're wanting to pull up a plant, split that stem through the soil line into the root, and you're looking for pepper-like structures that are actually the microsclerotia of the pathogen that causes charcoal rot. And so really the biggest thing with charcoal rot is to make sure you're picking a variety that has some moderate resistance to it, because these areas of your field, they're going to continue to have charcoal rot, but it's going to be very dependent a lot of years on the variety you pick and the environmental conditions we have, to the extent it can rob your yields. But again, first and foremost, you always want to make sure you're clearly identifying the issues you have in your field. And with that, again, that happens during reproductive growth stages when you need to be scouting. We run multiple variety trials every year and provide that information online at search.utcrops.com in our variety database, as well as you can download it as an Excel or PDF file. And here you're getting how different varieties performed in Tennessee, in fields, as in large plot strip trials, in farmers' fields, as well as small plot replicated trial work at research and education centers across the state. And so this really helps you understand how different varieties function in our environment, as well as we do specific screening for specific diseases. And that includes frog eye leaf spot, soybean cyst nematode, as well as charcoal rot. As always, if you have any questions or would like any assistance with diagnosing issues or questions about your production system, you can always utilize the resources at utcrops.com, and make sure you utilize your most valuable resource, your local county extension agent.